This is Rob from InfoWarriors Southern Africa. With Zimbabwe again in the news for all the wrong reasons, we thought it'd be interesting to look back at where and how this crisis started and compare Zimbabwe at this time to the South African situation today. We took some clips from this 1980 BBC Newsnight Special right after Mr. Mugabe was first declared president. Find a link to the original program in the description below. Does anything sound familiar to you?
Mr. Mugabe's election manifesto was greeted widely as a remarkably moderate document for one who many see as a man dedicated to a Marxist transformation of this country. But there are two passages in it which have led to fears on the part of the whites here. First, on industry and the economy. The manifesto says, a socialist transformation process will be brought underway in many sectors of the economy. And then on land, the manifesto says, a ZANU government will acquire as much land from the private sector as is necessary for the resettlement of the peasants who are currently on poor land or are without land. Well, I spoke to Mr. Mugabe and I asked whether we should now take it that this country will now lean more towards the Soviet Union and China than towards the West.
We are going to pursue a policy of non-alignment that does not deny us the right to be associated with members of either bloc. We would want to see ourselves a member of the non-aligned movement. We also would want to see ourselves become a member of the Commonwealth, as well as a member of the United Nations. But in relation to the two blocs, we are going to be absolutely neutral.
Can you tell us what your message would be to white people in Rhodesia now? They do have an image of you. We've been talking to them today as a Marxist, a communist who means to transform this economy and society. What is your message to them tonight? Well,
my message to them is that we would want to see them live in this country, free from any restrictions, free from any victimization. To us, we cannot practice racialism in reverse. We just cannot do it in principle. As far as we are concerned, they're entitled to serve the nation as the blacks are entitled to do so. And hence we would want to see them develop a greater sense of security, greater sense of confidence, and greater sense of belonging. This is really our message to them.
If you had to put your finger on one thing you'd like to change fast, what's that?
It's the position of the peasants.
Does this mean taking European land?
It means, of course, acquiring land from the European sector. But here, I must emphasize that there is lots of land which is unoccupied, which is underutilized, and land under absentee ownership. This is the land we are going to have to acquire, and in doing so, of course, we'll be quite systematic and orderly and proceed according to our undertaking under the Lancaster House Agreement. That means, of course, compensate those whose land will be acquired.
The people who voted Mr. Mugabe into power were mainly the Shona people of eastern Rhodesia. In the eastern provinces, Mr. Mugabe won 56 seats to Mr. Nkomo's 5. Mr. Nkomo, are you still very bitter at the campaign that Mr. Mugabe waged?
I never was bitter. That's one thing I don't have. Why do you think so?
You appeared at one stage, at a number of stages, to be referring to him as Idi Amin. I know you didn't mention him by name, but you did mention that Idi Amin was campaigning in Rhodesia.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say Idi Amin was campaigning. I said if there are people who compel you by force, who want to get votes out of you by compulsion, then you must be careful that you do not elect an Idi Amin.
Another similarity between the liberation movements that gained power in Zim and South Africa is the use of brutality, intimidation, or compulsion for votes. Once they display the willingness to go to such lengths to get into power, they cannot be trusted. And you can be sure that they will not care about you once they are in power. They were willing to sacrifice others, so why not you too? When you're faced with no alternative to people who will go to such lengths, would it not be better to not vote at all?
Then you must be careful that you do not elect an Idi Amin.
Who were you referring to?
I referred to people who did. It was not just
Mr. Mugabe.
One person. I'm not going to say those things. It was not just one person. It was not just one party. There were two or so parties that were doing that type of thing.